We are, folks. What a week. Whew. We've been working toward the weekend. What better way to spend our time together than to go through the in-depth mailbag? Let's start with a little post-credit scene from our Project 2025 trilogy. Sydney says, "You are just a Republican shill." John asked, "Is the Democratic Party paying for you to cover this?" Whew. Those are some tough emails, and there were a lot just like them. But listen, no offense taken. I'm a big boy. I got thick skin. By the way, if both sides are upset, maybe I'm doing something right. Think of it that way. Marianne gets it, though. She wrote, "Thank you for being objective and fair to both Republicans and Democrats and all of your reporting. It's refreshing." And I got to admit, that feels better. That one feels a little better, Marianne. Thank you. Moving on. Leanne had an interesting question. She says, "Is there a Project 2025 for Democrats?" Well, we talked a lot about think tanks in our Project 2025 series, and these are those groups of connected, influential people using privately funded research to lobby lawmakers and to sway policy with that lobbying. And they exist on both sides of the aisle, of course. There are tons of them. The Center for American Progress is one of the big left-leaning think tanks. Their board of directors includes former Senator Tom Daschle, Democratic donor, Donald Sussman, and Julian Castro, who served in President Obama's cabinet and once actually ran for president himself. The CAP doesn't have a big central document like Project 2025 does, but they have a bunch of little ones. They talk about climate change and abortion rights, affirmative action, and a lot of other topics that you might find in a Democrat's platform, which brings us to the 2024 Democratic Party platform. The DNC released a draft earlier this month, and it says things like scale up solar, wind, and geothermal projects, eliminate unfair oil and gas subsidies, universal background checks, bans on assault weapons, and supporting long-term undocumented individuals, including dreamers. It's all right there on their website. You should check it out. Chris had a question about President Trump and his felony conviction. He wrote, "If Trump is a felon, does that mean that he can't even vote in the election?" Well, let's see. Trump is registered to vote in Florida, a state that bans felons from casting a ballot. However, the case and the crime happened in New York. Florida defers to their rules, and under their rules, only felons who are in jail can't vote. So, unless the judge puts Trump behind bars in September, he'll be casting a ballot most likely for himself. We did find some things that Trump can't do as a convicted felon in New York. He can't sit on a federal or state grand jury, so no jury duty. Doesn't really seem like a punishment. He can't enlist in the armed forces, but pretty sure Fort Liberty isn't recruiting 78-year-olds. He can't own a gun, shout out Hunter Biden, and that's pretty much it. Here's a deep cut from back in May, which feels like a lifetime ago. You remember when those UNC fraternity brothers held up the American flag during protests on the Chapel Hill campus? I got a lot of emails from all sides on this one. Mike wrote, "Why would a GoFundMe be focused on throwing a rager? I am sure the frat boys in their neon-colored Vineyard Vines polo shirts, tank tops, brightly colored shorts, Vineyard Vines hats, and Sperry's could afford to throw their own rager." Michael said, "Read the GoFundMe. It was obviously satire." Well, satire and fashion choices aside, these fraternity guys did get a lot of attention. They were invited to the RNC. They carried the flag through the convention to a cheering crowd. No tank tops, no neon-colored polos there. They could have been wearing Sperry's. I don't know. I didn't get a good enough look. But it wasn't just the RNC. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave the boys a shout-out this week during a speech to Congress.
"And I wish to salute the fraternity brothers at the University of North Carolina who protected the American flag against these anti-Israel protesters."
We are still going through the inbox. Lots of messages in there. More mailbag segments to come and more in-depth to come. But we can't do it without you. We say this every time. Send me an email, dan@wrl.com. This is a segment about you and the things you want to see on the news. So let's talk about it. Tell me what's on your mind, and we'll go in depth.